Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me, Jay, with news out of the great state of Texas today. Uh, well, this happened a couple days ago, but the controversy surrounding Jasmine Crockett's comments. Representative Jasmine Crockett, um, a fifth member of the Notorious Squad, which is a group of progressive Democrats, uh, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Presley, and of course, Jasmine Crockett. Hey, Lisa, what's going on? She was at a conference for human rights, and she made the comment of, boy, the state of Texas is really hot. And, we got the governor Hot Wheels down here, and ain't nothing hot about him except that he's a hot mess. you know? And it was the comment of Hot Wheels in reference to his wheelchair, because Governor Abbott is a wheelchair user, that has a lot of people up in arms with righteous indignation and condemnation of her comments. But here's what I feel as a person who uses a wheelchair and who, unlike Governor Abbott, has used a wheelchair for my entire life. Governor Abbott became paralyzed at the age of 29, I believe, and he has been in a wheelchair since that time. But myself have been in a wheelchair since 6 months old, so I think I'm a little bit more qualified to give my opinion on this issue. How do I feel about what she said? I wasn't offended at all. I felt that the comment was just a joke. You know what I mean? Here we have the party, the Republicans, that are always calling us, the Democrats, snowflakes and softies because we can't take a joke. And the minute that one is dished out to them, they throw a hissy fit. Donald Trump, during his 2016 campaign, made fun of a disabled reporter. Do you guys remember that? When he mocked that reporter, he said that the reporter was telling lies about him, right? And he said, "Oh, I don't know what I said," making fun of the reporter's movements, hand movements, spasticity. He had a spastic condition very similar to the one that I have, cerebral palsy. I don't think he has CP, but he has something similar, right? And what did Republicans tell us? They told us, lighten up, it's just a joke. What happened to comedy? Wasn't this the Republican Party, the party of free speech, that was causing riots in Berkeley when Ben Shapiro showed up in 2016? Because they were the champions of free speech. It was the social justice warriors. It was the radical left, as Donald Trump calls them, trying to take away free speech, trying to limit comedy because we can no longer have comedy anymore. And as recently as last month, Elon Musk said that he's a champion of comedy. He champions comedy because comedy is a part of free speech. Didn't he say that? So how suddenly, in their hypocrisy, did the Republican Party now become the party, once again, like they've always been, of convenient moralism? They love to moralize when it's convenient to do so. But talk about free speech otherwise. Truth is, guys, the idea that most people have, especially Republicans, when it comes to free speech, it's free speech for me, but not for thee. They want to be able to limit free speech for you, but they want to be able to say to you whatever insulting, racist, anti-Semitic, Islamophobic, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, and yes, ableist joke they want to make. But as soon as you dish it back out to them, to one of them, then you're in the wrong for doing so. But let's talk about policy. Because in the end of the day, who really cares about a joke, whether it's made by Donald Trump or Jasmine Crockett or anybody? Let's talk about how the policies of the Republican Party and of Donald Trump affect disabled people in their daily lives. Right? Let's talk about that. And they do affect the people of Texas and the people of the United States in general on a daily in a very negative way. Because it is Donald Trump and Doge and Governor Abbott and his policies that are cutting benefits for people with disabilities, the very people that he wants to defend so righteously, right? So let me get this straight. A joke is bad, but policies that will negatively affect the disabled community in our daily lives, such as the benefits we have to receive from the government because our disabilities make employment and livelihood and sustenance very hard, that is not cutting that's fine, but jokes are off the table, right? Right, exactly. And Governor Abbott was all for getting rid of that stuff, and that affects him as well. But that doesn't really affect him, does it? It does, but it doesn't. Because, again, he's a governor. He's rich. See, that's the difference. What you Republicans don't get is that they have fooled you Republicans, every single one of you, whether you're disabled, whether you're black, whether you're poor white, whether you're a gay Republican, whatever kind of stripe of Republican you are, and you're not in the rich 1%, they have fooled you into thinking that their fight is your fight, that they're fighting for you, that what they're doing is it will benefit you. But it won't, because the more they cut, the more you'll be affected. But see, you think their victories are your victories, and they aren't. You think Donald Trump winning in the White House was a victory for you because you're white or you're straight or you're not disabled or you are disabled but you're a white person, or you're trying to beat whatever marginalized group up and using Donald Trump and his movement as a weapon. So you think you've won, but you haven't. You've lost. And you've lost even worse because they've convinced you that you won. So you don't even know you've lost. You don't even know you're suffering, but you are. We talked yesterday or a couple of days ago about Star Wars, Revenge of the Sith. Remember when Obi-Wan says to, when Anakin says to Obi-Wan, in my view, the Jedi are evil. And then what does Obi-Wan say? Well, then you are lost. That's you guys. You're Anakin Skywalker. You believe you're fighting for good, but you're really fighting for evil. And you're not fighting for liberation. You're fighting to hurt your own self. That's you. The average, everyday, disabled conservative or black conservative that votes against your own economic and group self-interest. But no, you have to hurt the LGBT community. You have to hurt immigrants because you hate immigrants so much. But you don't realize it doesn't stop at immigrants. They go to you next. You're next on the chopping block. And the only people that aren't affected are the rich people, because that's where Republican policies benefit the ultra rich. It doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect them. It affects you. You bear the brunt. You bear the brunt of these cuts by Doge. They don't feel it. Despite the fact that Governor Abbott is disabled, he's in the 1%. He won't be affected by it, but you will. You disabled people that voted for Donald Trump, you're going to feel it just like the able-bodied Latinos felt it that voted for Donald Trump. They thought they were doing the right thing. They thought they were getting rid of the immigrants, but guess what? It only starts with illegal immigration and then extends to legal immigrants. right? The Muslim community that voted for Donald Trump and supported him because apparently they were unhappy with Gaza and unhappy with Joe Biden's position in Gaza. What did they do? They voted for him and they thought he was going to do better, or they voted for a third party, which went to him anyway. And what happened? Mahmoud Khalil, the Columbia student, cracked down on pro-Palestine protesters, and yet another bombing of a Muslim country in Yemen. So just like that, just like those other two groups, you disabled people that voted for Donald Trump because you don't like LGBT people, or you're white and you're racist, right? Or you're a guy and you don't like women. You feel like feminism has gotten out of control. Because of that, you sit there and you vote against your own self-interest. And what happens to you? You get your benefits cut by Doge because Social Security is on the chopping block. Trump lied. He said he would never cut Medicare and Social Security. Guess what? He's doing it. Just like he lied about everything else. Because you people here that vote for this, you fail to study what political parties believe in. You don't know political philosophy. And I know you don't. I'm not trying to be arrogant, and I'm not saying that I know better than you, but I know you don't because of who you voted for, right? You voted for these policies and you're getting these policies, and there are people coming out now as we're a couple months in saying, you know what? I'm about to lose my health care, um, to pay for my type 2 diabetes medication or to pay for my other medications. I'm losing access to that. You know why? Because the guy you voted for said that he was going to cut everything drastically, but you thought he was just bullshitting. You didn't believe him. But guess what? He is. So it's bigger than this joke. It's way bigger. This joke is nothing. Like Lisa's saying. Okay. Lisa, don't act like I didn't vote for him the first time. Yeah, but okay, that was the first time. Was there such a thing as Doge the first time? No. Trump 2.0 is worse than Trump 20 Trump part 1. Trump part 2 is 10 times worse. Why? It could have been, but it wasn't. He wasn't even talking about that back then. He wasn't talking about illegal immigration back then. He wasn't talking about anything back then. He was stupid. The whole campaign was built on build the wall, right? And that's why, and because I did the first time, that's why I could speak on it this time. Because, yeah, he could have done it back then, but he didn't. He did other horrible things. Yeah, he was talking about building a wall, absolutely. But getting back to the original point, is deeper than this joke. I find it highly offensive that the people that are offended by this joke are not offended by his policies vis-a-vis disabled people. And what about this other comment about disabled people? What about Trump's comment about his own relative that was disabled, that he said it'd be better if he died? What about that? I don't hear any talk about that. That to me is 10 times worse than what Jasmine Crockett said. Hot Wheels is a nickname. He's in a wheelchair. I mean, what do you? What, I mean, did she make fun of him for being in a wheelchair? No, she didn't. There was talk about it, but there was no condemnation for it on his side of the aisle. None of the Republicans said anything about it. Other Democrats are coming out attacking Jasmine Crockett. The View is mostly Democratic, and they attack Jasmine Crockett for this. They made it out worse than what it is. What I'm saying is that when the Democratic side makes a mistake, people correct themselves and people move forward and they say, you know what, I was wrong. Let me do something different. When the Republican side makes a mistake, they just keep on doing it. That's the difference, I believe. Was the comment wrong? Yeah, but my point is, you can't. It wasn't that bad, number one, and like you can't get mad at one politician that speaks off the cuff and she says whatever's on her mind, right? And then not hold another politician that does the exact same thing accountable. Like, why is one person praised for doing something and another one's not? Maybe race and gender has a lot to do with it. You know, the fact that she's a woman and she's black and Trump is white and a man. You know what I mean? So if he's white and a man and he speaks his mind, oh, he's brave. He doesn't care what people think. He's against convention. But if it's a black woman, oh, she needs to be shut up, right? Totally wrong, man. Totally wrong. It's a total double standard, and we see this double standard all the time. You know, you'll see Democrats get called out for sexual impropriety, as they should, like Andrew Cuomo. But when Trump does the same thing, people just ignore it. No, the joke wasn't that bad. Was it ill timed? Yeah. But you know, what I mean, she's not gonna. It was just a joke in the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? No, they're not gonna call Trump out because why? Uh, it's a cult. It's not a political movement. It's a cult. They believe in Trump wholeheartedly. Like you're saying here, at least that I voted for him in 2016. The Trump now is worse than the Trump in 2016. Way worse because he has more power. Remember, he won the popular vote. And that's one of the things that he is arguing on True Social with a lot of these judges is that he won the popular vote. He has this mandate. Governor Abbott is also another guy that's highly praised within the Republican establishment. They might try to, in 2028, they might try to run him as the next FDR, the Republican version of FDR, right? And use his disability as a way to gain more votes in a way that FDR never did, by the way. Many in the American public didn't even know that FDR was a wheelchair user. If Abbott ran and won, he'd be the anti-FDR. Instead of putting more government programs in place for people with disabilities, he'd be trying to cut more for people with disabilities if he were to get in. But he's definitely somebody that people are looking at because of his stance on immigration. He has a hardline stance on immigration. He's one of those that was hardline in Texas. Him and Ron DeSantis were the two guys, the two Republican governors that were really hardliners on immigration, those two. And they were hardline on anti-COVID legislation in 2020 as well. So he's somebody that he's somebody that they're really looking at in 2028. So this is why this is important. If they can make him a sympathetic figure, if they can make him a sympathetic figure to the rest of the Republican establishment, though, um, he'll be positioned at least high, at least if he doesn't win, high in the primaries to be maybe, if not president himself, maybe a vice presidential candidate under J.D. Vance's ticket, because they're already looking to the future. Both parties are really, but the Democrats right now are in a state of disarray. They don't really know. The Democrats are like the Republicans were in 2012. They don't really know what the fate of their party is going to be. They don't know if they're going to go the more progressive routes to the left of the Jasmine Crockett's and the AOCs and the Bernie Sanderses and the people of that nature, like the Ayanna Presleys, those types, or they're going to go back to the establishment Democrats of like the Joe Bidens and the Hillary Clintons. I say go the other route. Go with the younger generation. Go with different faces. Those establishment types, they're not really working anymore. You know what I mean? We saw that. You know what I mean? Biden won because he's Biden. He was associated with Barack Obama and because of the pandemic. But Democratic voters are not really feeling those other older Democrats. They want somebody younger. And Jasmine Crockett, her core group, the squad, they're set to take over the Democratic Party. That's why this discussion is important, not just for media representation of people with disabilities, which is talked about a lot, especially with the movie Wicked being so high and prolific like it was. The first movie, and I love this movie for this reason. That movie was the first movie ever in every piece of popular media that really represented people with disabilities in a positive light. And I love that movie for that. I love that they picked a disabled actress for that. For the first time ever, it wasn't Drake in a wheelchair. It wasn't Kevin McHale in a wheelchair like in Glee, or Drake in Degrassi. It was an actual person that was a wheelchair user representing us on the big screen. Yes, it was a fantasy story, and it was also a representation of how you take a classic fairy tale and you reinterpret it for the modern era while using representation of marginalized groups without alienating the original source material. But that's a whole nother discussion, but from yesterday's video. But the point is, this battle between Governor Abbott and Jasmine Crockett is the battle between newer Democrats and newer Republicans. This is already a precursor of what you might see in the 2028 election. And it's a battle for Texas, as we saw not in the 2024 election, but in the 2020 election, though, at least. Texas was starting to go a little bit purple. The demographics of Texas are changing because a lot of people from blue states, because of the expense in blue states, especially in California, are moving to Texas. So Texas political demographics are slowly shifting. Plus, with larger immigration from Latin America. So Texas is going to be, in the future, Texas is going to be a battleground state. So this is something that's going to affect, voting patterns as well. But overall, Jasmine Crockett wasn't making fun of the guy. Like Lisa said, they call him Hot Wheels anyway in Texas. That's his nickname. So if that's his nickname and she's from Texas, and She knows that they call him that. What's wrong with her calling him that? You know what I mean? Why get indignant? I mean, she didn't say, "Oh man, that motherfucker." She didn't say, "Oh man." You know what I wish? I wish that she didn't use the C word. That's number one. And she didn't wish death on him. She didn't say that he wasn't performing his job simply because he uh, is in a wheelchair. She didn't say any of that. All she said was Governor Hot Wheels. So what? If it were me, I'd have been like, you know what? I am Hot Wheels. My wheels are hot, and I'm hot. And I'm so hot that I'm going to be reelected governor of Texas again in my reelection bid, and I'm going to be reelected to a higher office. And if you're not careful, I'll be coming after your office. See, one thing this guy doesn't know is that when you're disabled, you have to turn the disses around. You have to turn the disrespect around. Because if you don't, then every little thing is going to get to you, and people are going to perceive you as a baby and as a snowflake, which is what they accuse Democrats of, but they're doing it here. Funny how the same party that dishes out the snowflake allegations are the real snowflakes. Whenever they get dissed, they get indignant. You know, we see this from them all the time. No, he did. He did. He did, Lacey. He said that it's typical of the new Democratic Party that and that was all he said. That was it. But to me, I think, in my real opinion, at least, I think they're making a big deal out of this because they're trying to take the heat and the focus off Trump's leak on Signal. For those that don't know, Donald Trump, Mike Waltz, and uh, Pete Hegseth, his national security advisor, and his uh, the head of uh, national security, were caught on a group chat discussing their plans to bomb the Houthis in Yemen by this reporter named Jeffrey Goldberg. So Trump doesn't want this to Trump doesn't want the media to talk about this. He of course, because this is a national security breach. You're not supposed to be in a chat room discussing sensitive matters of national security, things that you plan to do with the military. This is supposed to happen in closed doors with your advisors, with Pete Hegseth and Mike Waltz, not on the internet. People are blaming the reporter, but the reporter was only doing his job, right? So of course, Trump wants to take away from this bigger thing. Not just him, not just Trump the individual, but the Republican Party wants to take away from this bigger issue and put the focus on this smaller, insignificant issue that doesn't matter. So by demonizing the Democrats and by demonizing, the liberal media, basically saying, "Oh, you can't trust them. Look, they're mean to disabled people." Do you really want to be mean to disabled people, to a poor disabled governor that has been paralyzed and in a wheelchair since the age of 29? This is the party that you want, taking the focus completely away from something that actually matters and putting it on something that doesn't matter to anybody. You know what I'm saying? Who cares what the joke she made? It was offensive, big deal. People that have disabilities deal with offensive jokes all the time. If he hasn't learned by now that he's many years that he's been in the wheelchair, that we deal with offensive jokes and then not take it so personal, then he's a big crybaby. But you know what? I'm sure he doesn't really care, but he'll use it as a wedge issue to talk about it so that people are not focusing on the real controversies that are really going on, like the signal leak and like the constant cutting of government programs by Elon Musk and Doge that has people such in an uproar that they're committing acts of violence against Tesla. So, I mean, they're masters at doing this. But when I heard this story, I'm like, why are we talking about this one story when we should continue to talk about this other story that is way more important and way more pertinent to what's a tragedy that could really happen, right? But keep in mind, more hypocrisy. This the same guy who, remember, he complained about Hillary Clinton's emails. That Hillary Clinton, when she was Secretary of State, was sending classified information and sensitive emails to other people, and the emails were intercepted. Trump sat there and said, well, we can't have that happen because why? It's a national security breach. Well, hello, Donald. This is a national security breach when you get caught texting on a group chat something that you shouldn't. So that's all, guys. I'm not offended by the joke, and I use a wheelchair, and I've used one for longer than Governor Abbott. It's just a joke. Get over it. Stop being a snowflake. Stop being a crybaby. Stop taking everything personal, And, you get mad when we fight fire with fire. But if you can't stand the heat, then stay the hell out the kitchen. Thank you, Lisa, for contributing. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.